Perfect Wisdom. The Large Sutra on Perfect Wisdom, with the divisions of the Abhishamaya-lamkara. Translated by EdwardConze. University of California Press, Berkeley, Los Angeles, London. Translation of the Sutra. Chapter 54, Demonstration of the Development of Skill in Means. Training in Skill in Means. Subhuti. How, O Lord, should the bodhisattva, the great being who courses in the perfection of wisdom, make a complete conquest of emptiness? How should he achieve the emptiness-concentration? How should the four applications of mindfulness be developed? How should he gain mastery over the right efforts? How should the right efforts be developed? So with the basis of psychic power, the Lord. Here, Subhuti, the bodhisattva, the great being who course in the perfection of wisdom, should contemplate form as empty. And he should contemplate in such a way that, when he contemplates, his thought does not get disturbed. With his own thought undisturbed, he does not review his own dharmas. Not reviewing his own dharmas, he does not realize. And why? Because that bodhisattva, that great being, should train in all dharmas as empty of own marks. And so he does not bring about the separation of any dharma, either of one who would realize, or of one which would realize, or of one through which he would realize. All these dharmas he does not review. Subhuti. As the Lord has just said, empty dharmas should not be realized by the bodhisattva, the great being. How then does the bodhisattva, the great being, who has stood in emptiness, realize emptiness? The Lord. When Subhuti, the bodhisattva, the great being, contemplates the emptiness furnished with the best of all modes, he does not contemplate, I do realize, I will realize, or I should realize. He contemplates, I will gain mastery, and not, I should realize. He contemplates, this is the time for effecting complete conquest and not the time for realization. Just unconcentrated bodhisattva, the great being, ties his thought to an objective support. Meanwhile, the bodhisattva, the great being, does not become destitute of the dharmas which act as wings to enlightenment, but he does not realize the extinction of the outflows. And why? The bodhisattva, the great being, becomes endowed with an exalted cognition, if, having stood in the dharmas which constitute the wings of enlightenment, he discerns thus: this is the time for complete conquest, this is not the time for realization. That bodhisattva, that great being who courses in the perfection of wisdom, should surely contemplate. For the six perfections is this the time. For the development of the applications of mindfulness is this the time, too. For the development of the path of the concentrations on emptiness, the signless and wishless, for the acquisition of the super-knowledges, of the concentrations too. Of the four analytical knowledges. But this is not the time for the realization of the fruit of a stream winner, 2. Of the cognition of a pratyeka Buddha. It is the time for the non-renunciation of the acquisition of the knowledge of all modes. It is thus, Subhuti, that the bodhisattva who courses in the perfection of wisdom makes complete conquest of emptiness. And he dwells in emptiness. And so with the signless. Of the wishless he makes complete conquest and he dwells in the wishless. He develops the holy eightfold path but he does not realize it. 2. He develops the applications of mindfulness and dwells in them. It is thus, Subhuti, that the bodhisattva makes complete conquest of the dharmas which constitute the wings of enlightenment, develops them, and dwells through them. But he does not realize the fruit of a stream winner. 2. Our hardship. The objective range of skills in means. IV 11:11. The overcoming of hostile states. Suppose, Subhuti, that there were a man who is a hero. Vigorous, of high social position, handsome, attractive, and fair to behold, endowed with the supreme excellence of loveliness and beauty. In archery he has gone as far as one could go, he is successful in warding off all manner of attacks, accomplished in all the 64 arts, and foremost in all crafts. He is dear and pleasant to many. Whatever work he may undertake will win him much gain and honor, and for that reason he would be honored, revered, and worshipped by the manifold. More and more he would feel ever-increasing joy and zest. Taking his parents and children with him on some business or other, he enters on a wild forest. The foolish among them would feel terror and hair-raising fear. He, however, would fearlessly say to his family, "Do not be afraid. I will soon get you out of this fearful wild forest. I will protect you and soon set you free." If then many unfriendly, destructive, hostile, and inimical forces should rise up against him in that wild forest, this heroic man would be endowed with the power of supreme wisdom. Having taken his parents and children out of that fearful forest, having set them free, he will securely and safely reach a village, city or market town, a country district or a place in a country district, and will dwell there full of joy and happiness, unhurt and uninjured. Nor does he become angry in his mind with those hostile and inimical beings. And why? Because he is well skilled in all the arts. In consequence, he can in that wild forest conjure up forces which are more powerful than those which oppose him, and all the forces hostile and inimical to him will flee in fright. And thereupon that madman will dwell at ease, after he has safely rescued his parents and children. Just so, at the time when a bodhisattva dwells radiating towards all living beings a thought of friendliness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and impartiality, he does not on that occasion through the realization of the signless concentration get established on the level of the disciples or the level of the pratyeka Buddhas. To dwell without support. A bird on its wings courses in the air and does not fall to the ground. It dwells just in space, just in the air, but it does not stand therein, nor does it get established therein. Just so, the bodhisattva achieves mastery over emptiness. He achieves mastery over signless and dwells in the signless. He achieves mastery over the wishless and dwells in the wishless. But he does not realize emptiness, the signless, and the wishless in such a way that, as a result of this realization, he would fall on the level of the disciples or pratyeka Buddhas, without having completed the 10 powers of a Tathagata, 2. The 18 Buddha dharmas, the great friendliness and the great compassion. But, having coursed in innumerable Buddha dharmas, he reaches the knowledge of all modes. The carrying out of the vows made in the past. He is as with a powerful master of archery, well trained in archery. He would first shoot an arrow upwards and would then by a regular succession of other arrows prevent it from falling down on the ground. In fact, the first arrow would not fall down on the ground until that man would decide that it should do so. In order that the first arrow should fall onto the ground, he does not send up the last arrow, with the result that the whole succession of arrows falls onto the ground. In the same way, a bodhisattva, who courses in perfect wisdom and who is upheld by skill and means, does not realize that farthest reality limit until his wholesome roots are matured in the supreme enlightenment. Only when those wholesome roots are matured in the supreme enlightenment, only then does he realize that farthest reality limit. Therefore, then, subhuti, a bodhisattva, who courses in perfect wisdom, should thus contemplate and meditate the dharmic nature of these dharmas. The skill which is uncommon. Subhuti, a doer of what is hard is the bodhisattva, if he trains in this dharmahood, in the reality limit, in the dharma element 2. In the 3 doors to freedom, and yet does not collapse midway before he has known full enlightenment. Wonderful is this, O Lord, most wonderful, O Sugata. The Lord. 4. Subhuti, all beings have not been abandoned by the bodhisattva, the great being. As he has not abandoned all beings, he can have this extraordinary vow. The bodhisattva whose thought aspires thus: all beings should not be abandoned. By me they should be set free. When he proceeds in dharmas which are not. If he aspires to the concentration of emptiness, the signless, and the wishless, which are the doors to freedom, the bodhisattva should at that time be known as endowed with skill in means. But he does not midway realize the reality limit, until he reaches the knowledge of all modes. The skill which is unattached. Moreover, subhuti, when the bodhisattva, the great being, becomes one who wants to contemplate these very deep stations. The emptiness of the subject, 2, the emptiness of the non-existence of own being, the 4 applications of mindfulness, 2, the holy,